I think in a business school, the faculty will generally be looking to make classes practical and applications oriented. And in that process, I developed a growth strategy project that led to a lot of learning about how organizations can grow, and led to process and steps and a startup. Well, it was when I was in a leadership position in the college. I was associate dean, and it was a period when all the rankings had started blossoming. So all our programs were now getting ranked, and the strategic planning process, in my view, had to really now become how do we build a unique competitive position? And so it really was an outgrowth of my teaching in the program, but then also having to lead a group around really driving to our competitive advantage in the market. And that's, the model became a tool in that context.
How does it work?
Well, the notion was to help people visualize what we mean by competitive advantage. And so it's a really simple set theory idea of a Venn diagram where we have a circle that represents customer value or the needs that customers have. And for example, a recruiter of an MBA program has a certain set of needs certain students with certain skills and characteristics who they want to hire. We have a circle, so Notre Dame has a circle that represents the value we deliver to those recruiters. Then the two circles overlap, right? So there's positive value in the middle where we deliver positively on the value recruiters expect. There's a non-overlapping area in the Notre Dame circle, which is value we create that maybe they don't care about or maybe they don't know about. And then there's also unmet need. But you can't stop there. You need to add a third circle, which is the competition. So the competition is perceived to provide value there. And when you organize that and look, there are 7 areas in the Venn diagram, and the topmost part is our unique advantage. There's a portion that defines value we create for customers that matters to them, or recruiters in this case, but that's different from the competition, and that's competitive advantage. Yeah, absolutely. I think that what's happened and what we've discovered along the way, so some of this was not planned at all, is that 7 areas of the Venn diagram help you describe the current competitive position. So do you have advantage? Does the competitor have advantage? Are there unmet needs? Is there low value stuff? But then the next version of the Venn diagram, a second version, really has prescriptions of what you can do to grow value for customers. It focuses on how do we build that unique green zone, that unique zone at the top that's our competitive advantage. So the prescriptions sort of connect directly to the initial analysis and give you a great focus for action, and it actually can happen quite quickly. Customer centricity is about having the customer genuinely in the middle of your decision making. It's a word that is kind of a buzzword. It gets used and thrown around all over the place and is not well defined, and everybody's got a different definition. But in my view, it literally is about understanding the customer's decision making process and building it into the organization's decision making process as well. Choice factors define the dimensions of which customers look at and evaluate and act upon different competitive options. If you define them clearly enough, what you find is it becomes very straightforward to get people, the decision makers, excited about and understanding that if you're getting a competitively lower rating on a service factor like solving my problem on the first call, that's significant. If that is an important factor to customers and you're deficient relative to the competition and relative to the customer's expectations, it becomes very quickly obvious what you need to do. But the other thing that happens in that process is the choice factors become really the competitive stakes. They're what you're playing for, right? And you use them to define your uniqueness in the market, to define your value proposition, define your brand equity. So there's a very important strategic conversation you have as well. Well, a disruptive insight is an insight about customers or customers' choices that is typically unexpected. It's surprising. There are many insights like that the companies ignore because they don't know what to do with them. But a disruptive insight is one that's important enough. It gets socialized within the organization. It gets shared. It is directly linked to and considered within the context of the decisions the company is making. And the company acts on it. So if we find, for example, a simple one is that we actually have an advantage on a factor, but our research discovers that customers think we're exactly the same as the competition on that factor. That is a highly unexpected result for most companies, and it's also highly motivating. So from companies who discover that and really buy into it, that fact gets shared, and it immediately or very quickly will get acted upon, and very often in a communications context. And very often, because we're correcting a misperception that customers have, there's an outcome. And the outcome is we get more choices coming our way, we get more sales, we get more revenue. So a disruptive insight is one that you get the insight first, you evaluate it, find it surprising, it leads to action, both in the form of sharing it and socializing people to it and really helping people understand the significance of it, and then acting upon it in a way that directly addresses the insight. And very, very often we find that outcomes come out the other side that are very positive. So the barriers to successfully executing a growth strategy tend to be organizational. So we talked about disruptive insights. What happens is you have to kind of disrupt the organization internally often to get people to understand those new insights and at times change the way decisions are made, or certainly change the decisions that are made. And barriers include that at times there are resistance to a result that kind of contradict people's expectations. So you have to make sure that that result is based upon really bulletproof research and that people can rely upon it and that it's a valid result. And secondly, you have to be people open to taking some risk and changing decisions when it does happen. So the barriers tend to be a lot about the validity, the perceived validity of the insight, and then the willingness to change decisions. Well, there's two ways that every organization can be looking at the customer market. The first way is to do an internal analysis. And what that means is to ask the people in the organization, the people in the teams who actually are responsible for bringing your product and your offering to market, what's their model for how customers make choices? What do they think customers think? That's internal, right? That's internal analysis. Second type is you get external analysis. You actually ask customers what they really think. The power of that, and this is one of the things that really came out of the early learnings from my work with my executive MBAs, is that you often get extremely surprising results. So the little beginnings of disruptive insights come from first asking people to put on paper what they think customers are going to say, and then asking customers, or better yet, having them ask the customers. because those personal surprises tend to be the most powerful, and they tend to be the most actionable, and they tend to be the most relationship building too, because the customer really appreciates the fact that you came out to try and understand their needs. And so you get I'm sorry, I'm going on, but this point is a really important one. You get two types of understanding. So you're the executive, you go out and talk to your customer, you now better understand them. Your customer has a tremendous appreciation for being understood. And it's the second time, it wasn't clear to me until we started doing these personal interviews, how important that was. And together, they both come back to the human value, the value we place on understanding. It's a very powerful value, understanding and learning. And that's really what underlies the power of those two different types of data. Everything that's important to you can be translated through the eyes of your customers. And if you want to know what's changing in the world that matters, there might be 200 things changing in the world. The three that matter are the three that are affecting your customer's decision making. And your customer will tell you what those three things are. So the economy may be changing a lot, and you may be assuming that that's affecting your customers. But you know what? You may go to your customer and they're much more frustrated about the fact that technology is changing all the time and it's making their worlds complex and so forth. So viewing the world through the eyes of your customer can be an extremely powerful thing, both in terms of your learning, but also in terms of your focusing on the most important things that are changing.